Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We're doing a spring change today. That is a loose cable on the right hand side. That indicates that I will look up and see that the spring is broken. This is a single spring setup, so the cables are both slack because there is no tension on the torsion tube up there. What we're going to do is we're going to pull the cables off of the drums and let them hang. Make sure that this is the only spring up there that is broken. Sometimes doors have two springs, but like I said before, this is a single spring setup. Also, when the customer is trying to open up the door with the broken spring, their chain on their motor became loose as well. So while you're doing the spring change, you can also do a service for them and tighten up anything and everything that needs tightening. How we're going to begin this spring change is we're going to take our 7/16 socket on our ratchet and we're going to loosen up the set screws on the spring. Then we're going to come over to the left hand drum and we're going to do the same thing and loosen up the set screws. They also take a 7/16 socket. Same for the right hand side. And now this is the torsion tube. I just wanted to show you guys this. Sometimes you're going to have a hard time with some of the divots on there, so definitely file them down. It just makes your job a lot easier. Now this is a bushing. This I took off with the old spring, but now I want you guys to see with this. This is the broken spring, but it is stuck on some of the divots that were put onto the bar from the previous installer, and it takes a little bit to get off. So I found an effective way to get this off, and I'm going to show you this right now. Is you're going to stick your bar in the spring and you're going to use your hammer and you're going to pound on your winding bar, not the actual spring itself. Because if you're pounding on the spring itself, you can either crack the spring and it can just tighten up more on the torsion tube, and it's just a pain in the butt to get off. So a trick that I came up with and my team that I work with, they showed me how to put the bar inside of the actual cone of the spring, and then you just rotate as you go. You know, a couple taps on one side, then you rotate it, a couple taps on the other side, you rotate it, and you just keep on going like that until the spring becomes loose on the other side of those divots. Now another thing though too is I wanted to show you guys how this is done, because this is, I'm not speeding up the video or anything. This is me working while recording this as well. This job took me a solid 35 minutes at tops. Alright, so I didn't want to edit anything actually out. I wanted you to see everything that is in these jobs. Once again, these are divots in here, and you just want to file them down. Once you file them down, you can get them pretty much smooth again and get the springs on. Now sometimes you got to bend these springs to get around cabinets, walls, or anything. These springs can bend, but once again, they are springs. They're very difficult to maneuver, but they can be done. That's the bushing as well from when the old spring came off. If you have new ones, put them on. If not, use the same one. If it's in good condition, it just stops the spring from rubbing on the tube, and it also stops the center bearing from rubbing on the tube, because once that gets rubbed too much, that can actually break. So what this bearing does, this bushing does, is it goes in the spring and it kind of holds it in place. Here to the center bracket, you're going to want to make sure that the bushing is in the spring and your 9/16 nut and bolt are up where you can access them. You're going to put the spring back together on the center bracket. Get them hand tight. They don't need to be completely tightened down just yet. You're going to want to take your 7/16 socket, wrench, and your vice grips, and you're going to tighten down the set screws with your 7/16 socket, and as you can see, the cable is flush all the way down straight. You're going to want to pull the drum with the cable attached as hard as you can with your hands, and then let the vice grip do the rest. And you're going to make sure that the vice grip is pushed up against somewhere so it holds all that tension. Now with the right hand drum, black cone, you're going to come over here and you're going to do the same thing. And these cables have a little crimp on them, so you want to just make sure all the crimps are behind the drum. You're going to want to put the cable on and make sure that the crimps are behind it like this. Pull it tight and tighten everything down just like you did over on the other side. Now, I was going to fast forward this, but this gives me a little bit of time to talk to you guys about all this. Alright, these take 30 quarter turns, okay? This, when it's a 7-foot door, it is always 30 quarter turns, and when it's an 8-foot door, it's 33 quarter turns, okay? Each door has a different formula for springs to work on these. They're called IPPTs. But for right now, I'm just showing you the base of getting the spring change done. You're going to want to go up 30 times, and you want to make sure that the springs are on the right side, okay? So once again, red goes on the left, right, or black goes on the right, so sorry. And with that, you always want to be able to go up when you're doing your turns. If you're going down, you're doing it the wrong way. It's always in the up position, and the spring coils will always be to the ceiling when you're turning them. So when you're looking at the spring, the end of that spring, the end of that coil should always be pointing up where you're turning at, okay, for each side. If it's pointing down, you got the spring on the wrong side. So with all this as well, spring changes can be dangerous, but you want to make sure that you are always safe, okay? My suggestion would be to make sure you get an easy spring change like this, so you can actually take your time and see how to do all of this correctly, because with these, there are pressure behind them, and fingers can get hurt, and hands can get hurt, and of course you don't want to get the product hurt as well. So you want to make sure everything is checked out with that, okay? With this one, I actually put, I don't know if I lost count or not, but I think I put one or too many turns on it. I had to take 2 more turns back off. Now, while I was here, and this is another thing that you guys need to make sure you are doing with calls, it doesn't matter if it's a motor, it doesn't matter if it's spring changes, always check the wires for the safety beams and for the wall controls as well, okay? This customer had safety beams down here, and when I touched them, the light turned off on the safety beams on both sides. So I went over and I did the right hand side, but I wanted to record the left hand side as well. What you're going to do is you're going to want to strip the wires back enough. It doesn't have to be a dramatic amount, just enough to make new fresh connections. These are all low voltage wires. You do not have to turn off breakers for any of this. You can just get down here, touch them. I promise you, you're not going to get shocked. And with it, in some of my other videos I showed you, you want to always braid these copper wires together. Yes, you got to make sure that they're color coded. It's usually plain white, and then the other one is white with a black stripe on it, and the pre-wire that's coming out of the wall or stapled to the wall could be red and white or black and white or the same colors. It doesn't matter, but you got to make sure that you put them correctly on here, that they have plugged into the motor, because if not, the beams will not come on. So you got to make sure you always have these beam lights on before you start braiding these wires. There's sometimes where you go and do it and the safety beam don't come on, and then you have to recut the wires and redo it again. Always electrical tape your wires. I know some people like to use wire nuts, which I'm not against, but if you want to use that is fine. I personally like to use electrical tape. Make sure that it's a nice tight wrap, no air, no water getting in there. Also want to include that I did do a full service of the door. I lubricated everything. I checked over the forces and limits, and I tightened up that chain that was loose. So the job took roughly 35 to 45 minutes, and that is the goal, is to get you guys doing these jobs in about an hour time. So if you have any questions, please ask.